Here we've got a belly-mounted rotary mower. This particular one was made by Woods. They went by the name of Woods Brothers for a long time, and then that kind of got shortened to Woods. This one's a 42-inch cut. This particular mower, or slight variations of it, is probably the most common one in the find-out Cubs. Last I knew, you could still buy it. And like I said, there were variations of it, but they were all kind of similar. There were other companies that made mowers. I wouldn't even try to name them all because I keep finding about four of them all the time. But this is one of the ones I find pretty common. 184 low boy. Another Woods mower, but this is a 59-inch instead of a 42. It's more of a finish type mower, whereas that one is more of a rough cut type mower where you're working in a little bit rougher environment. This one will do a nice job of mowing. That one will do a pretty good job of keeping blades sharpened and everything in order, but this is more of a finish mower. This is a Cub 52 grader and snow blade. They made different variations of these over the years. This was the second version, came out in I think 49. They made that version until about 1952, and then they made some fairly extensive changes to it. Kept the name the same, just to add some confusion. But the blades of one version or another were available almost from the start of production clear through to the end. The white tractor, probably most of you are familiar with that story. In 1950, as a marketing program, they wanted to have demonstrator tractors out that would catch the attention of people, and so they painted a bunch of tractors white and sent those out in the field so people could see white tractors instead of red ones. The idea was to demonstrate white ones and then sell red ones and keep the demonstrator out in the field through much of that year. In practice, what happened was a lot of people would say, yeah, I'll take that one, and they'd want the white tractor. They would repaint it red and then get another white tractor in and go back to demonstrating. They were made during about 3 months at the beginning of 1950. And so that's an example of what they looked like at that time. Well, maybe as many as 6,000, but I think the actual number was less. Because it's not clear. You know, there was about 6,000 of production during those 3 months, but it's not clear how much of the production during that time was white versus red. So we don't really have a number on that. Behind this tractor is a trailer. They first came out with one that basically looked like that. It's simply called the Cub trailer. Over time, they came out with some variations, slightly larger ones, and they started attaching model numbers to them. And so you will find those, and if you still read a data plate on it, you may find a model number, like a number 10 is relatively common, those ones are later ones. But you may find different model numbers or different identity on it, but they all were very similar in appearance. But you know, a little bit of size change and so on. Yes. I think that the earlier ones were red, and then later on they went to white ones. You know, for a long time, basically IH used red paint on tractors and many of the implements, and then they used a sort of white color that was really a cream, and they used blue, and those were trim colors that were typically used on implements, not so much on tractors, but they would use them on implements. Over time, you know, they made changes to their paint schemes, and they eventually went to, you know, the red and white like this tractor is, and the equipment, some of that changed. As the Cub moved more into being viewed as a piece of yard maintenance and landscaping and so on type thing, and when the Cub Cadets came along with their yellow and white Cubs, and a lot of the Cub implements started switching to yellow or white, and so a lot of the later trailers were white. But it's one of those things that, again, changed over time. You know, you got to keep in mind that between 1947 and 1979, there's a lot of opportunities for people to make marketing decisions.
What are the punched holes in the top of the hood that above the Farmall emblem for?
these. One lines up with the oil cup on each end of the generator. So you're supposed to be able to put your oil can down through there and hit the oil cup, which is also a lot easier to say than it is to do, but that's why they're there. Okay, on this tractor, there's a field disc back here. Starting in 1954, they made the fast hitch available. This is actually the later style of fast hitch that's on this tractor. There were slight variations of it. And then they came up with new versions of many implements that would simply plug in. And this is I want to say it's a Model 38, 5-foot cut disc harrow. So that's what you've got here. They made it both 4-foot, which had 8 discs, 5-foot, which had 10. Some of them had smooth blades, some were notched. This is notched, so this is the full-up deluxe version here.
There's something specific.
Those are weight lockers. Whatever you need to add weight. My part of the country, you usually found plenty of rocks to put on them. People have used whatever was handy.
I've got a disc at home that's a 10 or a 5-foot, but didn't do a quick hitch. Did they make a disc like that just pull behind the tractor? Was that afterwards?
There was a mounted disc somewhat similar to this that directly mounted on the non-fast hitch tractors. That was a Model 28. This Model 38 actually could be bought either way, so they could be done either with or without a fast hitch. And then they had a pull-behind disc. It was Model 23, 23A I think typically, and it was a tandem, and it was 4-foot. That was really high. Now, if you got a pull-behind that is wider, it was either made something bigger or it was made by another company, but it would not have been something specific for the Cub.
This was also got caddies that when you put them underneath it and it hooks and then lifts the disc up, there are 2 little round wheels that'll keep you from dragging across the street.
Yeah. IH did have some things similar to that for some of their other field discs. But again, other companies made things like that, so without seeing it, I wouldn't be able to say what specifically you have. But it sounds like it probably was not something specific for a Cub. Okay. Here we've got another Planet Junior planter. This is a 1-row version. I think this one's called the Cub 135, if I remember correctly. And it's the entire unit down underneath, press wheels and everything, was supplied by Planet Junior, and you know, just everything around it to attach to the tractor was built by IH. And again, relatively rare item. You find them once in a while. It might be a little easier to find one of these than one like the 4-row unit we were looking at, but they're still relatively rare. This tractor happens to be a hand lift, no hydraulics on it. Got the back half of a cultivator on it, and that's those are the main things that are noteworthy there. Okay. This is a transplanter unit. This one was made by Melvin. There were a couple of companies that made these. Basically, you know, one person drove the tractor as absolutely slow as they could move it and keep it running, while 2 people back there, you know, frantically put plants in the ground. And there was a mechanism usually for actually getting the plants down there, and then press wheels that did the finishing of the planting. But that's what we've got here, and again, relatively unusual item.
Did that come with special tools and stuff if you wanted to slide that front end and stuff out? Break that hard stuff, was that very hard?
When they were new, it wasn't hard to do. Now, when they've been stuck for 50 years, it takes a lot of sweat sometimes. But yeah, basically it was just a hand tool job. Loosen up the bolts, take the pin out, it would slide. And do the same thing with the tie rods. Of course, once the tie rods get bent, it's hard to do it too. But in theory, it shouldn't have been hard to do. But
is that something back in the day when you worked that you did quite often?
Depending on what you were doing. You know, for certain kinds of farming where you were working in row crop, you might have to readjust it depending on what crop you were working on. It might be a seasonal thing. It just depended on what you were getting into. Of course, a lot of them never got readjusted. That's why they're in rusted place now. Okay, this is a Cub engine power unit. that, based on the pictures here, I'm going to say it was off a combine.
Based on the serial number too.
Yeah, okay, it's got the combine NHD serial number?
Yeah.
Okay. International Harvester makes fairly small, like hay balers, combines, and so on. It could be powered by a cup-sized engine. There were variations that were used on some of the balers, and this one was used on the Model 52 Harvester Thresher, or Model 52 Combine. Besides being stamped in the serial number so you could tell where it came from, depending on what it was used on, it might have a different clutch attachment. Like this actually had a real full-blown disc clutch on it for the combine. The balers typically ran a big belt, and they just used a belt tensioner. But anyway, you will find Cub engines that are set up as power units, and this is an example of one.
Jim, on a 53, some of them have flat back headlights, some have teardrops. Did it depend on what month they were made, or should it be one or the other?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what point they changed over, but at some point they just simply quit putting down the teardrop ones and started putting on the flat type. It was just a running change as they got to it.
Did they go from a ball to sealed beam?
Yeah, sort of a sealed beam. For any of you that aren't familiar with the difference he was talking about, if you look at the tractor with the vegetable planter on it, you can see the shape of the headlights. And then you look at this next one here, you see they're quite different shape. The one over there used just a regular replaceable bulb and reflector and so on, and this one was a sort of a sealed beam. And it was a running change, you know, sometime in the 1952-53 range. Okay. Anybody that's never used one of these, raise both hands. This buzzsaw was actually it was called the Cub Sawyer, and it was built by, somebody help me out?
Mott.
Yes, Mott. Okay. Mott built it, and you do find these around once in a while. They're not real common, but they're not impossible to find. And it basically, you know, it's a buzzsaw. What more can you say about it? Mostly unbelievable by chainsaws. So that's what we've got there, and those are somewhat of an unusual thing, but that's kind of what the story is on that. Okay, we've kind of hit the end of the stuff that's out here. I did walk around a little bit, and there are some other things. Does anybody have any questions or something you want to talk about, or anything you want to follow up on? Yes.
Do you happen to know the model of that that feed grinder?
I believe that one is labeled as a 4E, which
4E.
sounds about right.
Okay.
You know, I think a 4 and a 6 were fairly small, and then they had larger numbers on some bigger ones. I think that's a 4.
Okay.
Anything else? I'll be hanging around here for a while if anybody's got something they want to talk about or ask about something more specific, or if there's anything that I glossed over that you want me to go back and say a little more about it, I can do that. Otherwise, I guess that's the end of the story for today.
Thank you.
Probably not.
I'll find you.